Well, it's not Friday night. It's Sunday. Friday was just 2 days ago, so that's okay.
Still the weekend.
Yeah, it's the weekend, and that's okay. Busy, busy. There's a reason for us going tonight instead of Friday, though,
Oh,
and this is something that really highlights your expertise in the sports medicine world, athletic training world, in that you had a conference, and most importantly, congratulations again to you and your athletic training students for winning what is, affectionately known as the Quiz Bowl, which is a real major student competition.
yeah, it's super cool. It's like a quiz show. And so all of the programs, and this is our district is Hawaii, California, and Nevada. And so there's 12 teams, and they compete against each other. There's 40 questions and then like a final Jeopardy question. And I think it's the fifth time we've won in the last like 13 years or something like that. So it's pretty cool. The other thing, I don't know if you know this, but I'm the host of the Quiz Bowl.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh,
I'm
wow.
so I'm like Monty Hall running around, and it's
Okay.
actually fun. I read
Yeah.
all the questions and try and keep. There's a lot of fans that come like that are at the conference, and so yeah, super cool stuff. It was just really really rewarding. So now the team's got to go to Orlando. So if you win the district, then you go to like a national
Okay.
competition.
Okay. Now, have you hosted before, or is this
Oh yeah, yeah. I've done. I think I've been host for this is my seventh year in a row or eighth year in a row.
Oh, good
Yeah,
deal.
yeah. It's super fun. I really enjoyed it. It's actually the highlight of my conference.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, when I get to do that because I get to interact with students from all over our district,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's pretty special. So yeah, really exciting time. Thanks for mentioning it.
That's great. Okay, so I got to ask then, how do you develop the questions? I mean, is that something you got a panel
So
that actually puts them together?
so we actually had five people, so myself and then four other faculty members from different universities.
Mhm.
And I wrote a good section of them, and we created a bank. So we basically created categories first, like we have 10 different
Mhm.
categories. Created a bank of about 10 questions in each one.
Yeah.
That was 100 questions, and then through the committee, we whittled it down to 4 questions per category.
Okay.
And yeah, and then the final question, I write the final question. And so what I do is I write 3 final questions, and then I send it to the committee and let them decide
Mhm.
which one they want. So it's not like we never want to make it so it's like just oh, the UNLV's guy wrote the questions.
I love it. Okay, so let's kick off this podcast. I'm going to ask you a question.
Yes, please.
What are the top tips for healthy to get to for an athlete to get to the start line healthy for St. George 70.3? Oh no,
Also,
that's a question. No, I need to give an answer.
I was
I
gonna.
already messed up.
I thought you were gonna ask what are the things I learned at the conference that would help me.
No, no, I want to
It's
know.
funny. I did learn a few tips at the conference, which I always do.
Yeah.
Um, so it's actually really interesting. There was a really good talk on tendon health and on tendon healing. And I actually asked I was the moderator for the talk, and I actually asked the speaker to be on our podcast, and he's agreed. So I didn't tell you that either.
Hmm.
So I learned a lot about tendons,
I
which was
love it. I love it. Well, then let's segue to our topic for tonight, which is staying healthy. In
yep.
particular, getting ready for 70.3. We had the tri camp that was focused on that. We got a lot of local athletes going up, and it's this is crunch time at this point. This is time to
Yeah.
really sort of dot the i's and cross the t's in terms of prepping for the race. So, what you and I talked about was trying to come up with some top tips for getting to the start line healthy and extend it into here's some good healthy habits that you can do throughout the entire season so that you're getting to every race healthy.
Yeah, I love this because it doesn't matter if it's St. George or Oceanside or Coeur d'Alene or wherever you're racing. There's always going to be more risk associated at different times in your training load, right? And I thought a lot about this as far as when do people get injured? And in my experience, the biggest time people get injured is about a month out from their race, especially
Mm-hmm.
if it's a big race. It's about a month out. Um, it's kind of this where it depends on I guess on your program, but those tend to be the biggest volume. But also, people are starting to move into like race specific stuff, so they're adding in potentially more intensity as well. Um, so I mean, that's the number one thing is to start to really look at your training volume, and associate it with like still consistency, but not gaining not gaining too quickly, right? We talked about ramp right before, how much volume or intensity we're adding at any given time. The other thing I think that happens at this time, John, and I don't know about you, but I start to see on my calendar, oh, 3 weeks away or 4 weeks away, race, you know, we've got all these metrics on my watch will tell me, oh, 26 days away from the race. And then it's like, oh my gosh, I'm not ready.
Yeah.
So what's the knee-jerk reaction?
Do more.
Train
And
more.
just
Right? Like,
do a midnight training session.
oh, it's true. It's like, well, I gotta do double days every day for the next 2 weeks, and that will get me ready.
Right.
And it's so, I think it's so, what's the word, mentally tough to not do that, right? Because you feel the pressure, and we've talked about it before, panic training,
Right.
right? And doing things that maybe you shouldn't do,
Mm-hmm.
as far as getting you to the start line healthy.
No, totally. And just like cramming for a test academically, maybe you get by, but one, you don't really absorb that information and then being able to use the information down the road. And so it's really not a healthy way to do well even on an exam. Although we've all done those where we stay up all night trying to study and memorize things and what have you, and then the next day you're just barely able to perform on the test. And so really the training that we do for an endurance event, we have to avoid that. And one of the things that a lot of people put effort into is planning out their training program over 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, whatever it is. And you make that plan with a good mindset, and you make that plan with, looking into your crystal ball to predict where things are. But a lot of times your plan is probably pretty spot on to follow. Yes, we need to adjust here and there based upon how things are going. But, this is that phrase that a lot of us use in triathlon is trust the process, because you've put a process in place leading up to race day. And it just is important to follow through on that plan as best as possible.
No, it's so true, but it's easy to build a plan, like 6 weeks out, 8 weeks out, 12 weeks out,
Mm-hmm.
assuming that life goes perfect, right? So, I mean, I've had this happen with people I've coached that they got a cold. Right?
Yeah.
So let's say it's 6 weeks out from the race and they got a cold and they took a week off of training, which they should do, right? Let their body recover. And then it's like, well, let's just jump back into the plan. No, you actually need to regress a little bit. And I think that that's a really important thing to understand, is that your life things are going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And you just can't be like, well, at 3 weeks out, I have to run a 12-mile run off of a 3-hour bike or something like crazy. Like, but that was my plan originally. Well, if everything went perfect, yeah, that was the plan.
Mm-hmm.
But the risk of running 12 miles fatigued is really great, especially if you were only running 7 or 8, right? And then the next week, well, oh my gosh, I have a race in 3 weeks. I got to run a half marathon. I better do a long run to get myself ready. And then you end up getting injured. Yeah. Or you end up digging a hole, right? So you run that run, and then, okay, then the rest of the week is you're so fatigued from that one effort.
Mm-hmm.
You've been better off running 2 6-mile runs and not have built that amount of fatigue. John, I had a few people that I coached last year that were relatively new into like the 70.3 world and into structured coaching. And they were nervous because going into their first race, they only ran 8 miles, was their longest run.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be okay. Trust me, you'll be okay. Like, we've built you robustly and slowly. And yes, would I have loved to have built you to the point where you're running longer? Absolutely. We didn't have time. So there's no reason to risk throwing these long running sessions in, or even long cycling sessions in 4 weeks out, 3 weeks out, if you're mentally tough enough to believe in the process and believe in the volume that you've done. Because you still did, like, some of these people were doing 10, 12 hours a week. They just hadn't built the long run yet.
Mm-hmm.
And every one of them did great on the run. They made their 13
That's
miles,
awesome.
right? Because we were smart. And if we would have taken some shortcuts, not even shortcuts, but like taken some risk of like throw some long runs in there, the fatigue on the system might have been too much, and something would have broken.
No, I love it. And what you're actually speaking to is the power of having someone coach you, because someone can evaluate what's going on and then make adjustments to the training program as opposed to just following, a downloaded program. And this is what it says for week whatever, and you got to do that. And this is what it says for the next week. And so, this is where when you're designing a program, you do have to have a bit of a crystal ball. And we all know how well crystal balls work. It's like, it's not easy to have a program that is detailed enough that you've got to follow every detail, but then flexible enough to allow for, okay, like you said, things didn't go right in life. I got sick, this happened, work happened, whatever it was, and now I've got to adjust. And so writing out, a downloaded program, there's got to be if-then statements.
Yeah.
This, then do this. If this, then do this. And that's not practical from a book or a just downloaded program perspective. This is where coach becomes handy, or someone has to understand the tenets involved with building a training program to be able to deviate. But a lot of us are type A people, and once we set a plan, we have a hard time deviating off of that plan unless we've got some authority figure or coach saying, no, you got to change tracks. You're on this track, you're headed down a dangerous one. Jump over to this track. This is better.
The other thing I think that is interesting is like, for me in particular, when I'm coaching people, I love to say yes to things.
Mm-hmm.
You want to go do this, big hike next weekend. That's great. But we think about, okay, you're going to be on your feet for 5 or 6 hours or 7 hours. I love it, but it has to now take away from something in your normal training plan.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, like a downloaded plan doesn't do that.
Right.
It still says, well, you're gonna do this big hike on Saturday. Well, you have a run on Sunday on your. That's not really smart. And or maybe they, like me, like we talked about, I raced a 5K a few weeks ago because I wanted to, right? Mm-hmm. That's not there's no like downloaded training plan that's going to say, hey, you're 6 weeks out from your A race, go run a 5K as fast as you can. Right. Because there's things that happen like physiologically that, I needed a day or two to recover from that.
Yeah. And the program, you're constantly recalibrating it based upon what was done, based upon what was targeting before. I mean, some coaches I know don't even disclose the next week's training program until they're far into the current week to be able to then set up the next week's training program. So it's a complicated process, but I think right now, are we 2 weeks out from St. George? 3?
Thankfully. I need one more week.
Yeah. So we've this is the time. Knowing an athlete right now, maybe they message in on the show and they say, okay, but what do I do now to get to to get the start line healthy?
And I love that, right? So now is the absolute time to listen to your body no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what your training program says, if your body's not feeling it, back off. Right? Don't just check boxes right now. It's not the time to check boxes. Yes, I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I had a 16K run, so 10-mile run.
Mm-hmm.
And I was about 4K in. I'm like, this is not a good day.
Mm.
And I'd taken 2 days off of my conference. So I was like, oh, it's gonna be great. I'm gonna be nice and fresh. I was horrible. And I was like, okay, back it off. So I slowed it down from the place I was gonna go. And I think I made 12K. I was like, just cut it. Like it's not worth.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. Just because I'm an A-type personality, I wrote down on my plan that I'm gonna do 16K.
Right.
I have to. So I listened to my body. Even today, I did a long ride, and same kind of thing. My legs just weren't good. Okay. I actually turned off where I could see my power, and I just looked at my heart rate.
Yeah.
Just keep it aerobic. Just keep it aerobic. For me, that's 120 to 130 heart rate. Just keep it there and go out, do your thing, but don't. Your legs aren't there today, so don't fight it. don't force it. And that's so hard to do when you're 3 weeks away, because my original plan was to do a bunch of race specific
Yeah.
power ups today. But I'm like, I could have done it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I absolutely could have, but to what benefit, right?
Yeah,
Like just
benefit, right.
digging the hole deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the more advanced triathlete will once again listen to their body at this
Mm-hmm.
time. And if their body is pushing back, just pump the brakes. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
still get a session in, but it doesn't have to be the session that you originally thought it could be.
The best way to have a successful day is to get that start line with zero injuries. And being underfit is better than having an injury. And so, I 100% agree with you, but that is so hard to do.
Yeah, but you have to be experienced. You have to experience the other side too.
Right, right.
Getting to basically limping to the start line,
Mm-hmm.
and recognizing that that's not the way to be successful.
Yep.
And I've done it. You've done it. We've all done it. And now as a more mature athlete,
mm-hmm.
And I don't mean mature older. I mean mature, more races under my belt.
Yeah.
And I've recognized the importance of that exact thing. Like I would honestly rather be 10% undertrained.
Yeah.
Take that risk.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. That's great advice. Okay. What's the next tip for getting to that start line healthy and ready to have a great day?
It's an interesting one because there's several ways we can go with this. I want to go more physical again. It's that you should be kind of doing body scanning. And what I mean by body scanning is just doing some movements, like once again, around the house, right? Squats and some calf raises and just some movements, and like feel areas like that don't feel well.
Mm-hmm.
And press those, right? With some active movement, foam rolling, massage, mobility work in general.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really good thing as well. And so don't ignore, once again, the things your body's telling you. If your hamstring is feeling like a little tight, don't just be like, well, let's just do a really good warm up and get out and hammer it. Well, like address the tightness when you feel it. And once again, that takes some discipline to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that if you're proactive with your body, I think that would be good. Right now, as I'm in this kind of 3 weeks out build, I've kind of dedicated a half hour each morning to my body.
No problem.
So instead of a half hour extra, like on the bike or running or whatever, like, okay, let's spend this half hour of just finding areas of my body that I feel need extra love,
mm-hmm.
and give it to it. Right. And even like, as I came back from my ride today, I'm like, okay, I know the first thing you want to do is hit the fridge,
mm-hmm.
Get some food in, but let's spend 10 minutes. Just once again, mobility work, some stretching, some foam rolling, like after my ride.
Yep.
And it's funny because I instantly felt better. And once again, I'm thinking about training tomorrow. We've talked about this a lot. Like, how do I best train tomorrow? Well, I got to address my body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So maybe dedicate a little bit of extra time to your body. That'd be
I love it. I love it.
What's your next one?
Well, let me just add one more or something parallel to that is when you start going through taper, all of a sudden your brain starts to say, oh, this hurts all of a sudden. And there's these little sort of taper niggles, wiggles, whichever way it is that show up. And because a lot of times our training sort of mutes the pain that we may have. And so when you start taking that training down, you start saying, oh, this has been bothering me, and I actually didn't even really recognize it. So this is a good way to really catch things that will last through the season by taking care of them. So I love that. All right, my next one, you're going to love this one because you're always an advocate for this. You got to prioritize sleep. Especially going into taper and race week, just have to have a good sleep routine. And your day is changing with the amount of volume and or frequency and or intensity of training you're doing. That may disrupt your sleep pattern a bit. You may not be ready for it, but you have to prioritize making sure that you're getting the right amount of sleep leading up to at least race week, because everyone loses a little bit of sleep during the race week for a variety of reasons, whether it's travel or changing time zones or just the stress of the event can change how your sleep's going to go.
Well, and I would contend even like during these, like when you're at the 3 4 weeks out, when you're having big volume,
Yeah.
that's the time to really prioritize it if you can.
Hmm.
And maybe it is little things like, going to bed at the same time, or making sure your room's cool enough, whatever the case may be. There's lots on sleep hygiene, and we've talked a little bit about sleep hygiene before, but I couldn't agree more. I think part of the reason, like, I didn't feel good running yesterday or even riding today, so I was at the conference and I was getting home 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and that's not me. Normally I'm in bed by 10 o'clock. And so if I think it's big. And even last weekend at our training camp, for some reason, neither night I slept good. And I think I was just stressed out about the camp itself, right? Like running the camp, but also trying to like train. And so I think I dug myself into like a little bit of a sleep hole. So
Hmm.
you're exactly right that is a very important piece right now.
Yeah. What's your next one?
Okay, this is the easy one to me, and that's nutrition. And
Yeah, you're got some good ones.
it's easy, but it's hard, right? So the first thing that, once again, and I'm looking at the approach from like when you're upping volume, upping intensity,
Hmm.
you've got to up food. And like this is not the time to lose weight. I think that it's such an easy thing to do. It's like, oh, I do triathlon because it helps me maintain a healthy weight or whatever. I really think during like the final build phases of going into races, when volume goes up, food has got to go up.
Hmm.
An extra hour of training could be 600 or 700 calories, maybe 800 calories more that you need,
Hmm.
and you got to give it to yourself, or you will not rebuild. You,
Hmm.
you cannot build if you're in a calorie deficit. You can't.
Right.
Like, that's just it's not the time to do that. If you're not happy with your weight right now and you're 3 or 4 weeks out of the race, deal with it after the race, right? Like the changes that you're making, if you lose a pound to this week and a pound next week,
Hmm.
it's gonna probably hurt your training.
Yeah.
It's not gonna help you. And so, from a macro level, I just look at right now it's calories, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh, we've done podcasts on nutrition, and everyone kind of knows how to eat healthy. But really, when you're upping your volume, I think just calories,
Yeah.
and avoiding being in a calorie deficit too much.
Hmm. No, I love it. Well, and on the flip side of that, as you start tapering and you're talking a bit about this with the reduced volume, the reduced frequency, reduced intensity, you still have to pay attention to fueling correctly, whatever that means in that context of tapering. And one of the challenges of tapering is you tend to have a lot more time on your hands. And so, a lot of times when we're during our high volume period, we have time in our hands, we're eating, right? And now you got to change that habit of, okay, I've got free time. Now what do I do with that free time? And you still have to fuel appropriately for the situation.
But also understand during your taper, what's happening is your body's rebuilding.
Yeah, right, right, right.
Protein synthesis is happening. Bones are being remodeled. Like all these things that actually take energy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so easy, like, oh, I'm not working out today, so I can eat less.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, but what's happening in your body? Your body's repairing the damages you did.
Yeah.
And there's a high metabolic cost to that. It's a higher metabolic cost than, once again, if you were just never exercising and
Mm-hmm.
and just on one day and you don't do anything that day.
Mm-hmm.
I think that, once again, I think that oftentimes, at least people I've talked to, they don't really think about that. It's like, well, I'm not training today, so I'm going to eat less.
Yeah, yeah, right, right.
But like, still, what you do eat, let's make it high quality.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I still think you probably need a little bit more than you think
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because of the remodeling that's occurring.
Yep, I agree.
So it's funny because I'll go back and think about like even when I was injured and I had all the fractures, I prioritized protein so much and just calories because I had 16 fractures I was trying to heal.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of metabolic demand to
Mm-hmm.
heal.
Yeah.
And really what we're doing when we're training is we're damaging ourselves.
Hmm.
And really those days of less training is actually healing that's occurring. And there's a metabolic demand there that needs to be met.
No, that's smart. And you're right. I mean, especially with the, your peak training period somewhere right around now, and now you're going to taper off of that. You got to fuel properly afterwards, after that peak training period.
The other one I was going to talk about that's kind of similar to that is starting to think about the change of season right now, especially, and that's the hydration side.
Hmm.
Like, today was the first weekend for me of being out where I started feeling hot,
Oh yeah, no problem.
and I was up for over 4 hours, and I think I had 5 water bottles full that
Okay.
I went through, and I could have had more because I got home and I was
Still parched, yeah. Hmm.
and once again, like our body learns and acclimatizes to higher temperatures, and one of the ways it does is it sweats more efficiently. And but yeah, as you make this transition, and as we make this transition into a hotter time, I think we need to drink more than we even
Hmm. Hmm.
would think we would need to drink. Um, Even like today, I was focusing on it, and I was almost drinking as much as I possibly could. Right, my stomach was not feeling like I could take in more.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Here in the Southwest, especially, and yeah, always drinking. It's hard to keep up with the hydration. All right, my next one. This is a tough one to talk about, but don't change equipment unless you need to change equipment. So
Well,
the
I
tendency
love
is,
it, but I don't, because you know what? My wife is right here, and I want to buy a new bicycle. So
there you
shh.
go, there you go. Right. That's funny. Oh goodness, got you in trouble. But you go to your race expo, you walk around like, oh, that's a cool hydration system. I'm going to put that on my bike for the race. Oh, that's a cool wetsuit. I want to buy that one and use that one for the race. Oh, look at those shoes. I want to, and not only at just at expos, but even leading up. The gear choices should be made well early in your training program, because then you're getting used to the gear. You're trying to gear out. You're not using it all the time, but you're making sure that you're comfortable with whatever setup it is. And yes, we all do, something at the last minute, goggles broke, we need to buy something, or my shoes never showed up to a race, I had to buy shoes. You got to do what you got to do. But really try to make your equipment decisions well into your training program so you're comfortable with it. So I don't know if I'm doing St. George yet. I'm sure I'm registered, but we went up to our training camp, and my fitness is not that great right now. And I was going up Snow Canyon. I'm like, I need an extra gear or two. And so I came home and I, researched what gearing I could get that would make it easier to get up the hill. And so I, quickly ordered a 36 tooth ring for the front gear setup and changed that out. Well, now I got to ride it. And I got to make sure my shifter works, because I have, DI2 and synchro shift and all that. And I got to make sure that it operates correctly, not only on the bike stand, but under load as well. So going up a hill, what happens when I start changing gears? So I'm testing that all out now. And I get enough time to, make sure that if I do the race, I'll feel comfortable that the gearing system's going to work. But yeah, be careful with equipment changes last minute.
I think that if we're talking about being healthy, the only one I can really think of is shoes.
Yeah.
Like changing your shoes too
Mhm.
close to a race probably is a really poor idea. The rest are just, yeah, you probably shouldn't do it.
Well, but shoes is a logical one, but bike fit.
Yeah, bike fit. Yeah, that's another one. Like changing crank length or something like that.
Changing something, or maybe I need to go a little bit lower, maybe I need to go a little higher, maybe I need to no, boom, don't. You're used to whatever bike fit you are now, and minuscule changes in that, because that will impact on a 56-mile bike ride, especially in something like St. George course. You change something that it can wreak havoc on your run.
What about swim technique?
Yeah, yeah.
Like drastically changing swim technique,
Mhm.
probably not a good idea. Like in your biggest volume time.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I like it. I like that a lot.
All right, what do you got?
Okay, the next one's going to be mental.
I got that. So I love it. We both have it. We have very similar items on our list.
Okay, we didn't talk about this before, so this is really good.
Yeah.
So, um, try not to get too stressed out,
Mm,
right? Like, I was, I'm really trying hard not to be too stressed out about St. George. I really want to do well. I really do.
mhm. Yeah.
No, like I'm not where I would like to be, but rarely are you ever, right?
Hmm.
Like exactly where you want to be. But I want to do well. And it's like it's a mental battle
Yeah.
sometimes. And but try to stay positive. Also try to just look at where you're at and not once again not panic, not stress out about it. I do think that once again going back to like sleep and recovery, having a good mental headspace
Hmm.
is is always going to help you. And by thinking negative thoughts,
Yeah.
thinking about what maybe you're not going to be able to do rather than what you can do,
Hmm.
is also not it could be potentially negative for you in when you're racing.
I think this is huge, and I think you're right. It's you got to be purposeful about being mentally fresh, mentally healthy, and this is a time to review whatever mental skills or skill set you have going into this period before a race. Could just review those. How do you stay mentally fresh at this stage of your training program where you're either at or you're just getting beyond your peak training. That's fatiguing, not only body wise, but mentally wise. And you've got work and family and other things that you're trying to balance. And how do you manage all that to stay mentally fresh, mentally healthy, so that when you're at the start line, you can pour everything you have into that race experience.
And it's hard. Like we all have all these, extraneous stresses in our lives, and
Mm-hmm.
my best advice is to try and not let the triathlon be the stress.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's hard. It's super hard. Like I get it. We all put a lot of effort into multi-sport and to be
Mm-hmm.
the best that we can be. And just accepting where you're at is hard
Yeah.
sometimes. And I got to be honest with you, every person I coach and myself and all my friends, almost never are you satisfied going into race day.
Sure. Right. Right.
Always, oh man,
Mm-hmm.
if I'd had a few more weeks, I already said, oh man, I'm glad I had 3 weeks. Well, if I had three, I'd be 1 and 4, right? Like you always want more time to prepare.
Mm-hmm.
And even in my best racing days, I don't think I ever went to a race 100% like today's the day. Like I got it. I squeezed the juice as hard as I can. I got everything I could out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's an important thing to understand. It's not just you. Like everybody goes into a race feeling like they could have done more, something could have been better.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it can be mentally very draining for you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a mental skill set that's good to develop is don't move the goalposts, because it is like you said, it's so easy to get done with the race and say, oh, but if I only did this, I would have been a minute faster with maybe been a couple places, or if I only did that. And you got to say you can't move the goalposts. You've got to, and I guess this is actually one of my tips with under the mental being staying mentally fresh is when you cross that finish line, you got to celebrate. And I know you do. Yeah, but it really is so important to say that was what I was able to do today and to celebrate that, because I always find that if people don't celebrate enough, they aren't in the sport long enough. And they're always being very critical of themselves in terms of what they could have done. If I only didn't have this injury, if I only didn't do this, or it's a tough way to go through sport, and so I think it really is important to have that goalpost to get kick the ball through it and celebrate.
I've really tried for myself because I used to get really negative after races.
Hmm.
I've really tried to say I allow myself to do that for one day.
Hmm.
Like like that if it's a 70.3, I allow myself for the rest of that day to be a little bit upset and like, oh, I
Hmm.
could have done this better, I could have done this better. Maybe even write it down.
Hmm. Hmm.
Next day, celebrate.
Yeah.
Right. And just like leave it all behind. It was
Hmm.
what it was. We can only move forward. We can't move backwards.
Hmm.
And um, so I've done that. I've really tried to like, okay, you give yourself some time to feel like, because if the feelings are what they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then just compartmentalize them, and that's worked well for me. I'm not saying that's working well for other people, but that's really worked well for me.
I love it. And but that's a skill set, and that's what you're talking about, developing that. And I think people sometimes need to be purposeful with developing that skill set to say it's okay to say I did a great job, even though yeah, I still want to go faster, but it's okay to celebrate what you were able to do, and
Oh,
that's longevity in the sport, really, I believe.
once again, being mentally healthy is going to keep you physically healthy.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to help you be physically healthy for sure.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Well, I've got a couple more under mentally skill, and one is, and we've talked about this quite extensively. Study the course, know the course, read the athlete guide, get all the logistics planned out because that helps you stay mentally fresh in terms of performance. And that helps you sleep well when you're not wondering, wait a second, where's transition? Where's the finish line? And where do I meet up with my support crew? I mean, getting all that done. And then along with that, I think it's so important to go back and review training logs and just look at the progression of where you were 12 weeks ago, 8 weeks, or whatever it was, and just look at the progression in terms of what's being accomplished. And again, that's a little way to say here's another win is getting to that start line, being able to do that type of training, because we all have doubts somewhere in the training program. How am I going to do this? How am I going to do how am I going to do a 56-mile bike ride? I'm only biking 20 miles right now, and to be able to say, oh, I've done that, and now I'm ready.
It's super powerful. But it's really interesting too. Like I've done races where I basically did no prep
Mm-hmm.
and just looked at it as an adventure. So um, at New Zealand,
Mm-hmm.
I I didn't drive the course.
No.
It was on somebody else's bike.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know the run course.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you can do it,
Sure.
uh, but if you want to perform really really well, like I wasn't trying to perform really really well.
Mm-hmm.
Had I been going there saying, "Hey, I want to be in the top 50 in my age group," I would have done all those things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think it depends on where you're at too, right? You are you truly trying to perform your best? You better do those things. But there's also exceptions to the rule.
Well, I would counter that and say, whatever level you are, it's nice to know the details
Yeah,
of the race. Because there is a comfort zone of, wait, where am I going to get water during the bike ride or the run, or so it is, you know, yeah, I think even to enjoy the experience as much as possible, have the comfort of going through the details, not to the level that I think you're talking about with the high performing athlete who is trying to crush a course. I always I always like to do it. Yeah, if I really target a particular race, I actually like to do it one year and then do it again the next year and really target the next year as a chance to do better. Just because it's one thing to even study a course, drive a course, but to ride it, to race it, you get a different feel for it, and then come back the next time and really try to crush it.
well, even the logistics,
Yeah.
of the city you're in and the restaurants and places to stay or whatever. Like I think you do learn, and yeah, I always do better the second time I go to a course.
Hmm.
Agreed. All right, you have another mental.
No, that's right. Prioritize sleep, prioritize training program. We talked about that. Fueling, listening to your body. Strength training. What do you do with strength training going into this period?
Um, I like to have people if they're regularly strength training. So
Hmm.
several people I coach, they do 2 times a week, every week. They don't miss up until the taper. Then we pull it away.
Yeah.
So once again, just let your body once again try and repair.
Hmm.
So I think that's the best advice I give people is like you continue on what you're doing. Don't increase your weight training during a build,
Yeah.
right?
Very.
Just maintain, and then during the taper, that's the time to drop your strength training.
Hmm.
But I also say take that time and use it for mobility.
Hmm.
And body once again we talked about like just body overall health and wellness
Yeah.
to your body. So it can still be on your schedule of like, hey, on Tuesday, Thursday, I have a 45-minute weight training session. Let's just turn that into mobility. And
Like that.
people I like even, hey, throw them into a yoga class or whatever it is that
Mhm.
just makes them feel good. Yeah, that's what I do with that.
I like that. And don't take strength training up in the taper period.
Oh,
Take any new sport up because you got all this time on your hand. You go from lots of training to something far less, and it's like, oh well, maybe I'll go bowling, or maybe I'll go do this, and it's like, oh, probably not. Yes, enjoy your life, but pick your spots.
I completely agree with that. Yeah, I think
Mm.
that that's an important thing is even like we talked about with hiking, like
Yeah.
go for a hike, but don't go for a 6 hour hike, right? If
Hmm.
you're
Hmm.
for an hour and a half hike, go
Hmm.
ahead and do that. But don't be like, oh, I'm going to do some epic thing where I'm going to do Mount Charleston uh,
Hmm.
for you know because I'm tapering and I've got time.
Hmm. Hmm.
Not,
Yeah.
not thing to do. It could be very risky. Yeah.
Cool. You got any others?
No, I think that's about it.
Good.
Yeah,
Was it?
I think we covered a lot of good topics here today.
Yeah, that's good. Well, it's going to be fun to see a lot of people getting ready for St. George in this final phase, and I'm sure we'll have at least one more podcast where we focus our talk on that race.
Yeah, I think it's really cool. Obviously being the last St. George, and
Mhm.
it's sold out, which is really cool.
Yeah.
It's a lot bigger race than it's been in the last few years. So there's that, and then there's a lot of people trying to qualify for
Hmm.
Spain at that race as well. So I think it's gonna be exciting. It's gonna be an exciting time for sure.
It will be awesome, man. Well, good talking.
Okay, bye.
All right, talk soon.